They say the moment that destroys a man rarely looks violent. No explosion, no warning, no blood. Sometimes, it's just the sound of a door closing. A soft, final click behind the person he trusted most. The rain was falling hard that night in the city. The kind of rain that blurs the neon lights and turns glass towers into mirrors of regret. Julian Vance stood alone in a garage that smelled like dust, old ink, and the metallic tang of failure. He wasn't looking at the blueprints on his desk. He wasn't looking at the flickering server light. He was holding a single, crumpled sheet of paper. 4 words. I'm choosing life. That was the night everything he had built collapsed. To understand the weight of those 4 words, you have to understand the man Julian was before the world broke him. He was a dreamer, an architect of the future. He didn't just want to build skyscrapers, he wanted to build cities that felt alive. And by his side for 7 years was Elena. I remember the early days. The days when we shared a single cup of coffee because we couldn't afford 2. I remember the way Julian would look at a blank piece of paper like it was a map to the stars. I loved that look. In the beginning, it was enough. We were the golden couple. We were going to be the ones who made it. But Julian's vision was too big for a world run by wolves. The wolf's name was Marcus Thorne, a billionaire with a predatory instinct for brilliance. He didn't just want Julian's software, the revolutionary aura dynamics. He wanted to own the man behind it. When Julian refused to sell his soul, Thorne didn't argue. He didn't negotiate. He moved in silence. He planted a seed of doubt in Julian's investors. He manipulated the patents. And then he did the unthinkable. He invited Julian's wife to a gala he knew Julian couldn't attend. Imagine it. Elena standing in a room of silk and gold, looking at the life she had always dreamed of. And then there was Marcus. Julian is a genius, Elena. But geniuses are tragic figures. They die for their art. A woman like you weren't meant to be a martyr. You were meant to be a queen. Back in the garage, Julian was working. He didn't know the bank had already sent the foreclosure notice. He didn't know the servers were being wiped by a virus Thorne had commissioned. He was coding. He was building. He was fighting for her. Just 1 more hour, Elena. If I can just bridge this connection, we're going to be okay. I promise. But Elena wasn't in the garage anymore. She was in the back of a black limousine, watching the rain wash away the only life she had ever known. She didn't look back at the small, dark window where Julian sat. She didn't think about the 7 years of shared meals and whispered promises. She thought about the penthouse Marcus had shown her. She thought about the diamonds. By the time Julian realized the room was empty, the note was already cold. He stood there, the silence of the room louder than any explosion. He realized that Marcus Thorne hadn't just stolen his company. He had stolen the reason he built it. Julian Vance died that night. But a new man was born. A man who would spend the next 10 years crawling through the mud of the corporate world, hiding in the shadows, waiting for the day he could look Marcus Thorne in the eye and say, "Everything you have belongs to me. Welcome to Written in Fate." This is the story of the architect of ruin. Julian Vance was not a foolish man. In the world of structural engineering, he was a giant. He understood load-bearing walls. He understood how much pressure a beam could take before it snapped. He was methodical, brilliant, patient, but love made him careless. He believed loyalty was permanent. He believed sacrifice was a currency that would always be returned. He believed Elena loved him, the way he loved her. And because of that belief, a belief that was as much a part of him as his own DNA, he ignored the quiet betrayals. Betrayal doesn't usually scream. It whispers. It starts with the small things. The things you tell yourself are just a phase. Elena started coming home later. The garage, once filled with their shared laughter and the smell of cheap takeout, became a tomb of silence. Her phone never left her hand. It became an extension of her, a glowing barrier between her eyes and his. She spoke about opportunities. She spoke about networking. But she never mentioned names. Julian never questioned her. Because when you love someone deeply, you don't interrogate their absence. You explain it. She's stressed, I tell myself. She's tired of the struggle. I just need to work harder. If I can just finish this one model, if I can just show the world what I've built, I can give her back the smile I haven't seen in months. Imagine the nights. Julian, hunched over his desk, his eyes bloodshot from the blue light of the monitor. He'd hear Elena walk in at midnight. He'd smell it on her, not the scent of the city but the scent of expensive perfume. Sandalwood. Leather. The scent of Marcus Thorne's world. He'd look at her and she wouldn't meet his eyes. I'm tired, Julian. Don't start. Just keep working. And he did. He worked like a man possessed, thinking he was building a staircase to the stars for her. He didn't realize he was actually digging a grave for his heart. He forgot the most basic rule of architecture. A building is only as strong as its foundation. And his foundation was a woman who was already halfway out the door. 1 week before the end, Julian found a receipt in the trash. It was for a dinner at the Gilded Palm, a restaurant where a single appetizer cost more than their monthly rent. He held that small piece of paper in his shaking hand. A logical man would have seen the truth. A methodical man would have walked into the bedroom and demanded an answer. But Julian folded the receipt and put it in his pocket. He told himself it was a business meeting she was too embarrassed to tell him about. He told himself she was trying to help him behind his back. He lied to himself, because the truth was a fire he wasn't ready to walk through. Julian Vance wasn't a fool. He was just a man who chose to go blind rather than see the woman he loved walk away. But fate has a way of forcing your eyes open. Elena was already meeting Marcus. While Julian was sitting in a cramped office, chasing unpaid invoices and begging for a week's extension on the electricity, Elena was sitting in the back of a temperature-controlled Maybach. She wasn't just meeting a billionaire. She was auditioning for a new life. She wore different clothes to those meetings. Soap that didn't itch. Heels that didn't click. They whispered. She spoke differently. Her voice lost the edge of frustration it had when she talked to Julian. She smiled differently. Julian noticed. Of course he noticed. A man who spends his life looking for cracks in foundations doesn't miss the shift in his own home. And then, he dismissed it. Every afternoon before Julian came home, Elena would change. She would strip off the designer dresses Marcus had bought her and slide back into the faded jeans and old sweaters of her struggling life. But you can't hide a change of heart. I looked at Julian's drafting table and saw a graveyard. I looked at Marcus's penthouse and saw a kingdom. People call it betrayal. I called it an upgrade. I was tired of being the girl who believed in the underdog. I wanted to be the woman who owned the hounds. Imagine a Tuesday night. Julian is sitting across from her, eating lukewarm soup. He's excited. He's telling her about a breakthrough in the algorithm. He's talking about us. If we can just hold on for 2 more months, Elena. I've reached out to a new firm. They're interested. Elena is looking at him, but she's seeing Marcus. She's remembering the way Marcus looked at her while she drank a $500 bottle of wine 2 hours earlier. That's great, Julian. Really? Her voice is flat. That a man with any sense would have felt the coldness. But Julian? He takes her hand. Her hand is cold, but he tells himself she's just shivering because the heater is broken again. Because love doesn't just blind you. It teaches you how to lie to yourself with the skill of a master forger. Julian once found a business card in the pocket of her coat. Thorne Enterprises. He held it. He knew that name. Thorne was the man trying to crush him. He asked her about it. Why do you have this, Elena? I was looking for a job, Julian. For us. I thought maybe I could talk to them, get them to drop the lawsuit. I'm doing this for you. It was the perfect lie. It was built on the one thing Julian couldn't resist. The idea that she was his partner in the fight. He didn't see the card as a threat. He saw it as a sign of her loyalty. He kissed her forehead and told her he was sorry for ever doubting her. He walked back to his desk, feeling a renewed sense of hope. While in the next room, Elena pulled her phone from under her pillow and sent a single text to Marcus. He's still clueless. See you tomorrow. The foundation was gone. The building was already falling. Julian was just the only one who hadn't realized he was standing in the debris. The knock came on a Tuesday morning. Tuesday is an ordinary day. A day for groceries. A day for laundry. A day for progress. But at 10:14 a.m. the ordinary ended. Standing there was a man in a gray suit. He didn't have a face you'd remember. He had a stack of papers and no emotion. He didn't look Julian in the eye because Julian wasn't a person to him. Julian was a case number. Julian Vance? You've been served. Julian picked up the stack. Blue-backed. Formal. Stamped with the seal of the Superior Court. He expected to see Marcus Thorne's name. He expected a patent dispute. He expected a corporate attack. He didn't expect to see the name at the top of the petitioner line. Elena Vance. Elena was suing him. Not for a divorce. That would have been a mercy. She was suing him for everything he had left. For fraud. For emotional negligence. For financial endangerment. I didn't do it because I hated him. I did it because Marcus told me that if Julian had anything left, any claim to his work, any shred of dignity, he would eventually come for us. To build my new world, I had to burn his to the ground. And then, Julian reached page 12. The air left the room. The garage, his sanctuary, felt like it was shrinking, the walls closing in like a vice. The suit didn't just ask for the bank accounts. It didn't just ask for the remaining equity in Aura Dynamics. It asked for full custody of the children. In the eyes of the law, Julian was being painted as a man who had lost his mind to an obsession. A man who kept his children in a drafty, dangerous apartment while he chased imaginary software. Marcus Thorne hadn't just bought Elena's loyalty. He had hired the best lawyers in the country to rewrite Julian's history. To the world, Julian wasn't a genius. He was a threat. Julian didn't scream. He didn't cry. He didn't throw the papers across the room. He sat down. He sat on his old stained drafting stool and traced the line of his own signature on the marriage certificate that Elena had attached as Exhibit A. Because betrayal doesn't feel real at first. It doesn't feel like a broken heart. It doesn't feel like a cinematic explosion. It feels administrative. Feels like ink on a page. Feels like a court date. Feels like the sound of a stapler. I remember thinking, I need a pen. Not, I lost my wife. Not, my children are gone. I need a blue pen to sign the acknowledgement. My brain was protecting me. Because if I felt the truth of what she had done, I would have turned to ash right there. Julian looked out the window. Down the street he saw the black limousine. It wasn't Marcus Thorne's car this time. It was a car sent for Elena. She was standing on the sidewalk watching the house. She didn't look sad. She looked at her watch. She was waiting for the server to walk out so she could finally leave the neighborhood forever. The server walked out. The car door opened. Elena disappeared inside. Julian looked out the window. Down the street he saw the black limousine. It wasn't Marcus Thorne's car this time. It was a car sent for Elena. She was standing on the sidewalk watching the house. She didn't look sad. She looked at her watch. She was waiting for the server to walk out so she could finally leave the neighborhood forever. The server walked out. The car door opened. Elena disappeared inside. Julian Vance was left in a house that was no longer a home, holding a future that was now a legal liability. Courtrooms are not where truth is found. They are where love goes to die publicly. They are sterilized rooms where years of intimacy are reduced to Exhibit A and Exhibit B. Julian Vance sat at the defense table. He was wearing the only suit he owned, the one he had bought for his and Elena's 5th anniversary. It was a little loose now. He felt small. He felt exposed. Across the aisle sat Elena. She was polished, confident, untouchable. She sat next to a team of lawyers whose hourly rates could have funded Julian's company for a year. Behind them in the gallery sat Marcus Thorne. He wasn't on trial, but he was the director of this play. He watched Julian the way a scientist watches a trapped insect. Julian listened, as his life was rewritten by strangers. The defendant spent 18 hours a day in a dark garage, ignoring the basic needs of his family, suffering from a grandiose delusion regarding a software that doesn't exist. Every word was a brick in a wall they were building around him. They took his passion and called it instability. They took his long hours and called them neglect. They took his poverty he endured to build a future for his children, and called it endangerment. I didn't look at him. If I looked at him, I might remember the way he used to make me laugh. I might remember that he was a good man. So I looked at the back of my lawyer's head. I looked at the gold watch Marcus had given me. I convinced myself that Julian was the monster they said he was, because if he wasn't, then I was. Then came the testimony. Elena took the stand. She didn't look at Julian once. She told the judge she was scared. She told the judge she just wanted her children to have a stable life. The judge, a man who had seen 1,000 divorces and felt nothing, nodded. The verdict? The ruling was a massacre. Julian lost the rights to the aerodynamics patents. They were ruled as joint assets, to be sold to the highest bidder to cover legal fees and debt. The highest bidder, of course, was a shell company owned by Marcus Thorne. And the children. Julian was granted supervised visitation, 4 hours a month, in a government building. Julian felt the world go black. He felt the urge to scream, to leap across the table, to demand justice. But then he looked at Elena. She was leaning in to whisper to her lawyer. She was smiling. A tiny, triumphant smile. And in that moment she made one mistake. She leaned too far and her folder slid. Julian saw the documents. He saw the structure of the deal Marcus had made with her. It wasn't just a divorce, it was a merger. Elena assumed Julian was emotional. She assumed he was a broken heart walking. She forgot Julian was an architect. And architects understand structure. He realized that Marcus Thorne hadn't just stolen his life. He had built a legal cage using Julian's own weaknesses. And if a cage is built, it can be dismantled. They think they've demolished the building. They think I'm standing in the rubble. But they forgot one thing. I'm the one who drew the blueprints. I know exactly where the load-bearing wall is. And I'm going to pull it down on top of both of you. Julian Vance walked out of that courtroom with nothing. No money. No company. No family. But as he stood on the courthouse steps, the rain began to fall again. He didn't open an umbrella. He let the water wash away the last of his tears. He didn't look like a victim anymore. He looked like a man who was starting a very, very long project. The world thinks Julian Vance disappeared after the first trial. They thought he was a ghost, haunted by his own failure. They saw him working night shifts in a sterile data center, a man who had traded his blueprints for spreadsheets. But Julian wasn't just working for a paycheck. He was mining. He didn't fight with words. He had learned that words are cheap in a room full of lawyers. He fought with something Marcus Thorne didn't think he had the stomach for. Evidence. Every night for 18 months, Julian sat in the dark. He wasn't looking at the sky anymore, he was looking at the ledger. He tracked the consulting fees Marcus had paid to Elena's secret offshore account 3 months before the divorce was even filed. He found the forged signatures on the patent transfer, signatures that didn't match the pressure points of his own hand. He found the hidden accounts, the merger documents that proved the lawsuit wasn't about negligence, but about a hostile takeover of a man's life. Marcus Thorne is a genius of greed. But greed leaves a trail. It's like a structural flaw in a skyscraper. If you follow the crack long enough, it always leads back to the foundation. I didn't need a lawyer to tell me I was right. I just needed the math to prove they were wrong. This time, when Julian walked into the courtroom, he didn't wear his old suit. He wore a cheap, black blazer and a look of absolute, terrifying calm. Elena was there looking bored. Marcus wasn't. He thought the game was already over. But as Julian began to speak, the air in the room changed. He didn't talk about his feelings. He didn't talk about his broken heart. He presented a timeline. The bank transfer. The email chain. The metadata on the fraud evidence that showed it was created on Marcus Thorne's personal laptop. The judge, the same man who had stripped Julian of everything, leaned forward. The boredom was gone. He looked at Elena. She wasn't smiling anymore. Her polished, untouchable mask was beginning to crack, revealing the panic underneath. The truth didn't arrive loudly. It didn't come with a shout or a dramatic confession. It arrived, undeniably. The judge looked at the evidence. He looked at Elena, who was now trembling, her hand reaching for a phone that wouldn't save her. And then he looked at Julian. In light of the evidence of systematic fraud and parental alienation, the previous order is vacated. Full physical and legal custody is hereby awarded to Mr. Julian Vance. Effective immediately. Julian didn't smile. He didn't look at Elena to savor his victory. He didn't pump his fist. He just closed his eyes. Julian, please. I was just doing what Marcus told me. Julian didn't even hear her. He was already somewhere else. Because survival doesn't feel like winning. It feels like finally being able to breathe after being underwater for 2 years. Feels heavy. It feels like a burden that has finally been shifted, but the bruises remain. He walked out of the courtroom not as a husband and not as a millionaire, but as a father. I have the foundation back. Now I start the demolition. Julian finally has his children back. Elena didn't disappear after she lost in court. In the world of the ultra-wealthy, a legal loss is just a PR problem to be buried under a layer of gold. She didn't go into hiding. She didn't show shame. She upgraded. While Julian was walking his children to a public bus stop, Elena was being photographed boarding a Gulfstream G650. While Julian was checking the price of milk, Elena was being poured vintage Krug on a yacht in the Mediterranean. She wanted Julian to see it. She wanted the world to know that even if he had the children, she had the win. Julian saw it all. He saw the Instagram stories. The blurry, champagne-soaked photos of Elena laughing, her head tilted back, Marcus's hand possessively on her waist. He saw the headlines, the new power couple, Thorne and his muse. He watched her laugh at parties, while he sat at a kitchen table under a flickering fluorescent light, packing lunches for the next morning. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in the window while I was folding their laundry. I looked 10 years older than I was. My hands were calloused. My eyes were tired. And then I'd look at the screen. I'd see her in a dress that cost more than my daughter's future college tuition. It wasn't the money that hurt. It was the ease of it. The way she could just erase us. This wasn't just a divorce anymore. This wasn't just a custody battle. This was cruelty. Marcus Thorne knew exactly what he was doing. He encouraged Elena's public displays of wealth. He wanted to break Julian's spirit. He wanted Julian to feel so small, so insignificant, that he would eventually just stop. Stop trying to build. Stop trying to fight. But Marcus Thorne made the classic mistake of a tyrant. He confused silence for surrender. Every time Julian saw a photo of Marcus and Elena, he didn't feel despair. He felt data. He noticed the background of the photos, the location tags, the people in the frame. He saw who Marcus was doing business with. He saw which board members were wavering. Elena was his window into the fortress. She thought she was flaunting her victory. Julian saw it as reconnaissance. The most painful moments weren't the galas. They were the nights his daughter would ask, "When is mommy coming to see us?" Julian would have to look into those eyes that looked just like Elena's, and find a way to tell the truth without destroying her. She's working on something very big right now, sweetheart. But I'm here. I'm always going to be right here. He would kiss their foreheads, turn off the light, and walk back to the kitchen table. He'd push aside the crumbs and the homework, and he'd open his laptop. The screen would glow, illuminating the architecture of Marcus Thorne's downfall. She thought she was winning because she was in the light. She didn't realize that in the dark, Julian was rewriting the script. The architect was no longer building homes. He was building a trap. Julian Vance started over. But starting over is a polite way of saying he crawled into the dirt to find the pieces of himself. He was no longer the golden boy of the architecture world. He was a name on a blacklist. He was unknown. He was rejected. He was ignored. In the beginning, no one would take his calls. The name Vance was synonymous with the Thorne lawsuit, a toxic brand. So Julian did the only thing a builder knows how to do. He went to the basement. He worked nights at a server farm, surrounded by the heat of other people's data. While the world slept, Julian studied. He didn't study blueprints of steel and glass anymore. He studied the blueprints of power. He studied the markets. He learned how Marcus Thorne moved his money through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. He learned how high-frequency trading could be used to expose the load-bearing debts of a billion-dollar empire. Marcus thinks he's safe because he's at the top. But the higher you build, the more the wind wants to pull you down. I learned that buildings aren't the only things with weak foundations. Empires crack too. You just have to know which brick to pull. Julian stopped eating for pleasure. He stopped sleeping for rest. Every calorie, every hour of consciousness was dedicated to the Phoenix Group, his shadow company. He lived on coffee and the memory of the look on Elena's face when she walked out of the courtroom with Marcus. He didn't use that memory for anger. Anger is a fire that burns out. He used it for cold, calculated energy. He realized that Marcus Thorne was a paper tiger. Marcus was asset-rich, but cash-poor. He was leveraged to his neck, using stolen patents as collateral for massive loans. Julian didn't need to fight Marcus in a boardroom yet. He just needed to buy the debt. Julian began to move in the shadows. He didn't buy Marcus's stock. He bought his debt. One loan at a time. One supplier at a time. He was like a termite in the palace. No one saw him. No one heard him. But the wood was disappearing from the inside out. By the time Marcus Thorne realized someone was coming for him, the unknown man had already acquired the keys to his front door. Julian Vance wasn't an architect anymore. He was a demolition expert. And the demolition was scheduled for tomorrow morning. The fall of a titan is never as loud as you expect. The world waits for a crash, a thunderous boom that shakes the earth. But that's not how empires die. Marcus Thorne didn't collapse suddenly. He leaked. It started with a single drop of red ink. A debt that surfaced from a shell company no one recognized. Then another. Then a flood. In the world of billionaires, loyalty is a luxury bought with a rising stock price. When the price stops rising, the loyalty evaporates. One by one, the partners fled. The men who had toasted Marcus at his wedding to Elena suddenly couldn't be reached. The banks that had given him unlimited lines of credit began to close their doors. Marcus Thorne was no longer the architect of empires. He was a liability. I watched the men in suits walk out of our penthouse with their heads down. I saw Marcus throwing a crystal glass at the television because the news wouldn't stop saying his name. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw it. The fear. He wasn't a king. He was just a man who had stolen a crown he couldn't afford to keep. The irony was a cold, sharp blade. The same man who had mocked Julian Vance in that garage 10 years ago, the man who had called him a sinking ship, was now the one taking on water. Marcus Thorne spent his nights on the phone, calling people he used to ignore, begging for time. Give me a week. Give me 48 hours to move the assets. But time is the one thing a billionaire can't buy when the debt is called. Time doesn't negotiate. Time doesn't care about your penthouse view or your designer suits. Julian Vance sat in his office, a modest space overlooking the city, and watched the clock. He held the kill switch in his hand. Every loan Marcus had taken, every secret debt he had hidden, was now owned by Julian's shadow company. He didn't need to shout. He just had to wait for the clock to strike 12. Elena stood in the middle of their marble foyer, surrounded by boxes. The upgrade was over. The private jets were gone. The champagne had turned to vinegar. She looked at Marcus and she didn't see a billionaire. She saw the man she had traded her soul for, and realized he was bankrupt in every way a human can be. Someone is doing this, Elena. Someone is hunting me. I can feel him. He's in the walls. He's in the ledger. He was right. Julian Vance was in the walls, because he was the one who had designed them. The billionaire had fallen. Now it was time for the architect to walk through the ruins. There is a specific kind of silence that exists in a room where an empire has just died. It's heavy. It's cold. It's the silence of a tomb. Julian Vance stood at the head of the table. The same table where, 10 years ago, Marcus Thorne had signed the papers to steal Julian's life. The door opened. It wasn't Marcus who walked in first. It was Elena. Elena came back quieter. The confidence that had carried her through the galas and the private jets had evaporated, leaving behind a woman who looked exactly like the girl from the garage, only tired, older. She looked at him with the desperate hope of a woman who thinks she can still find a spark in the ashes. It was a lie. They both knew it. But Julian didn't interrupt her. He didn't scoff. He didn't even look angry. He just listened. He listened as she talked about her regret. He listened until her voice trailed off into the empty room, realized she was talking to a man who was no longer there. Julian stood. He didn't loom over her. He simply looked at her with the clarity of an architect looking at a failed structure. You spent 10 years wondering if I'd ever forgive you, Elena, but you missed the point. Forgiveness requires an emotional debt. And I don't owe you anything. You didn't break me. You didn't ruin me. You refined me. He walked to the window looking out at the city, the skyline he was now rebuilding. An architect learns more from a collapse than he ever does from a success. You taught me where the cracks were. You taught me that a foundation built on greed will always fail. I'm not angry that you left. I'm grateful. Because the man you left was a dreamer. The man you're looking at now is a builder. Julian didn't wait for her response. He didn't wait for a tearful apology or a plea for a second chance. He had already turned the page. Where are you going? To pick up my children. They have a future to get ready for. The world sees a man who bought a company. They see a billionaire who rose from the grave. But Julian Vance knows the truth. Some stories aren't about the win. They aren't about the money or the revenge. They are about the moment you realize that the person who tried to destroy you was actually the one who taught you how to survive. Some paths are paved with gold. Some are paved with ash. But every step is written in fate.